Do you believe that God allows bad things to happen to us? By the way, one of my friend asked me, why do you worship a God who punishes his people when they go away from his will? But my question is, do you think that God punishes us for our wrongdoings? Or do you think it is the consequence of the things we've done that plays itself? To unpack these questions, we are going to watch a video and see how these great authors and Bible scholars have to respond to these questions. So without further ado, let's get started.
We're in Exodus 9:8, in the midst of the plague. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had spoken unto Moses.
It's very important to do one quick thing on the Hebrew. It does not say stiffen, or what was that the word in the King James? Harden. It is clear what it says. This is easy. Vayechazek. The word chazak is in modern Hebrew as well. It means strengthened. He strengthened Pharaoh's heart, which goes back to my original point. He gave him free will. He did not deprive him of free will.
Right, that's a crucial point.
Crucial point.
Yes. Yeah, so I wonder why it was translated as hardened, or even maybe hardened didn't mean exactly the same thing at that time in the translation.
That's right. That's just as when King James says, "Thou shalt not kill," for the commandment, which is "Thou shalt not murder." In those days, kill was murder.
Yeah, but you can understand hardening of the heart as a strengthening of the will, in the sense that it's like a crystallizing of the Pharaoh's will. Like his will gets locked in, basically. And so you can
but
understand
it's still up to the Pharaoh.
It's up to the Pharaoh, but it's like
as long as we know it's up to the Pharaoh.
Yeah. No, that's a very important.
Of course, there's also the point that it's still saying the Lord is behind this, and so the contention there is that the principles of reality itself are being shown forth here, and Pharaoh is himself within them. And that doesn't undermine his free will, so to speak, in the way that you're saying so well, Dennis, but rather it shows that it is itself, you might say, conditional upon these principles.
Well,
Yes. By the way, I also had a concern about this. When I was reading, and the Bible records that God hardened his heart, I was asking myself, why did he harden his heart, and yet he wanted Pharaoh to release his children from the land of Egypt? But this video answers this question. It is just a translation of that word from Hebrew, that God did not harden his heart. In other words, he strengthened his heart. He also gave him free will so that he can decide on what he wants. He didn't want to tell Pharaoh what to do. He wanted Pharaoh to have his free will to either release the children of Israel or not to release these children. So I guess this answers my question, and I know it's a question for many of us when we read and we find that God hardened the heart of Pharaoh. I think that clears the doubt. So let's continue listening.
He strengthened him to be the fullest version of himself.
Fair way.
Yeah, well, we'd also say, if we're going to accept the principle that a universe with free will in it is better than one without, even though that might allow for the emergence of evil, then we have to be willing to assume that if God is allowing even the Pharaoh free will, that is in some sense a reflection of something that's in the highest place.
Yes.
Right. And I think you can make a pretty good case that for will to be as free as it can possibly be in the metaphysical sense, it has to be able to span the entire dimension of choice between radical evil and radical good. And so.
But you remember in the first 5, it's Pharaoh who does it. And now after the second 5, the Lord does it to him. In other words, he's driving him to the logic of his own settled choice, which is a biblical form of government, of judgment.
Right, well, that's a way to understand judgment. Even in the New Testament, you have the sense in which judgment is the consequence of your own decisions.
Right,
it's the natural consequence of your own actions, and that.
Yeah. Now this starts to answer our question: does God punish us for our iniquities? Okay,
and that
and
brings
a reflection of your own actions, and there's warnings about that consistently in the Sermon on the Mount, right? That you're going to be judged by the criteria that you use to judge others. That's inevitable, because they reflect it back to you, and you also practice it, and then necessarily and inevitably apply it to yourself.
And the fruits of your actions ended up almost being sometimes a judgment that is brought back upon you. But if you take drugs, you could say someone is a coke addict, and then you could say, well, God is judging you, but the judgment is just the behavior itself playing itself out on you, right? The world God created the world with an order. If you break that order, the consequences come. So you could call it.
That's my argument. You'll love this, because I love what you just said. So when I teach the 10 Commandments, I ask people, so what's the punishment for violating the Sabbath? And what I'm about to give you as my answer is heartfelt, because I know it from my own life. The punishment for not observing the Sabbath is you miss the Sabbath. And because if you keep it regularly, as I do, and you miss one, you really miss it.
What do you miss? Like personally?
Oh, the rhythm of my life is that one day a week I leave the world. And if I don't leave the world that day of the week, 14 days go by when I have lived a secular life, and it gnaws at me.
This is such a fundamental principle, because it's so easy to approach a religious text as if this is somehow, a myth someone made up that, about a God that is external to reality. He's going to punish me, but that really what this text, I think, is about is precisely this principle, is showing us from within what the principles of the real are. And this dictum that you've just given us about the Sabbath, which is so beautiful, this occurs also in Plato in the Gorgias. He says, it is worse to commit than to suffer wrongdoing. This is taken up by Boethius and others who argue that, goodness is its own intrinsic reward. I mean, you are one with the goodness you have done, right. Just as evil is its own intrinsic punishment.
And so that's reflective of an intrinsic moral order.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess they have answered my question about, does God punish us for our wrongdoings? But then from their discussion, you realize that this is the consequence of the doings that is just playing itself in our lives. And therefore, we cannot really say that God truly punishes us for wrongdoing. And this clears the doubt that was in my mind and that was in your mind at the moment when you are watching this video. And these guys are great scholars. I'll be making more videos about them and how they are exposing the Word of God with understanding. Most of them are writers and great authors that are known in this present world. If you had doubts about God punishing his people and allowing bad things to happen in the present world, I hope that this video helped you to clear that doubt. And if it has helped you, please don't forget to drop me a comment. I would like to know how this video has helped you. And please, if you like this video, please don't forget to give it a like. And my friend, you can also subscribe to this channel, and not only subscribe, ring that bell so that you do not miss our future videos that we upload on this channel. Otherwise, you can click here to watch our next video, and I'm pretty sure that I'll see you in that video. Peace.